Hello everybody and welcome to the CEM homework review video for year 5. This is block 6, week 5 and lesson 10. And today we are going to look at the following exercises. You were using your verbal reasoning quick practice test book, which I will show you in a moment. And we're completing the odd one out exercise, antonyms, synonyms and close passages as well. So quite a few things in this section. And this is the book that you were using today. We're starting on page 28 and we're going to have a look at the odd one out exercise. So ideally, we'd like you to try and stick to the timing guidance given as far as possible to help you practice for the real exam. So in this one, you had 4 minutes to complete the test and 10 questions to complete in that time. And in each question, 3 of the words are related to each other and 1 is not. So you had to circle the letter under the word that is not linked to the other 3. And in this example here, we have bus, car, truck and foot. So our answer was D, foot, because the other 3 are types of vehicle. With number 1, we have robin, cuckoo, ant and owl. So the odd one out here was C, ant, as you should have recognised the other 3 are types of bird. Number 2 may have thrown you slightly. We have width, metre, height and length. The odd one out here was B, metre, and that's because this is a particular unit of measure rather than something that we are measuring. So we might be measuring the height of something with a metre stick, for example, or we might be measuring the length of something in metres. So this is a unit of measure rather than something that we measure. And with 3, we had A, orbit, B, comet, C, asteroid, or D, meteor. And the answer was A, orbit. These are things that exist in space, whereas an orbit describes the way that something is orbiting, something is going around a planet or solar system. Number 4, then the answer was D for fox. These are all verbs, for example. Number 5 was C for feast. Again, it's something that is unrelated to the other 3. The other 3 are adjectives. Number 6 was B, Denmark. This is a country. The other 3 are cities. Hopefully you recognise that. Number 7, answer was C. This word is amateur. The other 3 are professions. Again, if you haven't come across this word before, please do write it in your word and meaning book along with any others that are new and unfamiliar to you. Number 8 was bowl because the other 3 are cutlery items. Number 9 was determine. Again, the other 3 are verbs, as is determine, to be fair. But meander, wander and roam are actually all synonyms of the same thing, which hopefully you have picked up on is walking, whereas determine is something completely different. And number 10 was be accustom. Again, the other 3 are synonyms for the same thing: shock, astonish and jolt. And moving on to test 22, this was antonyms. And just a reminder, antonyms are opposite words or words that have the opposite meaning. So with this test, ideally, we'd like you to work 2-3 minutes. And you had 10 questions to complete within the time given. Now, in each question, you had to fill in the missing letters to create an antonym of the word on the left. Now, this could be quite tricky. So partial words, I've talked about this before. You want to think, you may have an idea of what the word is by looking at the word on the left. This is your first clue. So ensure, in this case, you're looking for an antonym, something that means the opposite of the word on the left. So to ensure means you make sure something can happen or somebody can do something. So your first thing is to think of a word that might mean the opposite. And obviously you have some letters given to you as a clue. So if I wasn't sure right now, I might look in my thesaurus at this point. If I know what this word means, I can think of any word that means the opposite, and I would look for that word in my thesaurus. It might then give me this word here that I'm looking for. If it doesn't, then you can think back to word structure, how words are formed. What letters are given to us? Are they vowels or consonants? What letters are likely to be needed? And this word here becomes jeopardize. Jeopardize means you are preventing something from happening. Again, this is one, if you didn't know already, that you can put in your word and meaning book. Bliss, number 2. This is a way of saying happiness. And I think this one's quite obvious. It becomes sadness. Remember, it's an antonym that you're looking for. Words with the opposite meaning. Now, then we had dear here, an antonym for cheap. So not dear diary or my dear brother. In this case, it's used as a way of saying something is expensive. And number 4, passive. Antonym was active. Then we had pretty, antonym for plain. Damage, so if you restore something, you're fixing it. Void, this could mean something that's empty, but in this case, because the antonym is valid, that means it's true and correct. Void means the opposite of that. It's null and void. It's something that you can't use, for example. You might see it on a ticket for something. If you remove a certain part of the ticket with the barcode on, for example, your ticket would become void, which means you can't use it. Number 8, prolong. That means to keep something going. To contract means to make something smaller. Persist, number 9, carry on with something. So cease means stop. And finally, number 10, conclude means to end, and commence means to begin. Well done, everybody. Moving on to test 23. Again, this is a missing letter activity, and you would have 5 minutes to complete 15 questions this time within the time. This time, you're looking for synonyms. Now, synonyms are the opposite to antonyms. They are another word that means the same as the word you're given. So don't get confused as you're doing this. Remember, this time you're looking for words that mean the same. So a synonym of reply in the example here is answer. I replied to the question. I answered the question. So to tackle this one, congregate. What does that word mean? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to look it up in my dictionary. That will then give me some other synonyms as well as the meaning, but you might be able to work out a synonym based on the meaning, particularly as you are given some letters. So these will be clues. An assembly at school means you all congregate together, you assemble together in the school hall. We're not just looking at synonyms, I notice here. We are looking at a mixture, synonyms and antonyms. Make sure you're reading and checking carefully because I didn't there. All I saw was synonyms. Synonyms and antonyms. Same, opposite. Same, opposite. So an antonym of fabulous was ordinary. So again, use the clues that you are given to help you out there. Agreeable is pleasant. Animosity, the opposite is rapport. Again, note these down in your word and meaning books. Having a good rapport with somebody means you have a good relationship with them. You get on. Animosity means that you don't get on with somebody. Reckless means that you don't have a care in the world and you maybe don't think through your actions before you do things. And that is a synonym for imprudent. Omission means you've missed something out, you haven't inserted something. Conspicuous, this means you stand out, and that's the same as remarkable. Benevolent is an antonym. It's an opposite word to spiteful. So just make sure you're looking very carefully at whether it's a synonym or an antonym that you're looking for. Spiteful, you will know, is somebody being mean and nasty. Benevolent is a way of saying, referring to kindness. You may not have come across this word before. Emphatic, this word here is a synonym for this word here, and they mean that you feel what others feel. So you have empathy for them, for what somebody is going through. If somebody feels sad, for example, because of a situation, you might feel sad for them. You recognize how they might be feeling in that kind of context. Oblivious, this means completely unaware, but you're looking for an antonym, so attentive is the opposite. Defend is the same as justify. Friendly is opposite to stern, strict, serious. Ramble can mean a type of walk, but in this context, it means a type of chatter. Somebody might be rambling on, they're chattering on about the same thing, for example. Rupture, perforation, this means to tear. And amble is also a way of saying walking, but in a kind of careless way, just ambling along, not really paying attention to where you're going. Striding, however, remember you were looking for an antonym here. Striding means you are walking purposefully. You know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. So there were 15 marks you could get for that exercise there. And moving on to test 24. This time you had 12 questions to complete in 6 minutes. So roughly 30 seconds to be spent on each question. Now this time you had to circle the letter next to the one sentence that contains correct grammar, spelling and punctuation. So you need to read the sentences in your head or aloud if that helps you, although you won't be able to do that in the exam. But if it helps you at for now, for homework, you can read it aloud. Because you need to work out how it sounds and make sure that it sounds grammatically correct. Or it might be that words have been spelt wrong or punctuation has been left out. I gave him 2 eggs. That's correct. I gave him 2 of eggs. That does not make sense. If we had the word my, for example, or your in here, then it would make sense. I gave him 2 of my eggs. I gave him 2 of your eggs. So here as it is, it does not read grammatically correct. I gave him 2 eggs. That's the wrong spelling of 2. For the number 2, it is spelled TWO. And here we're missing an S. I gave him 2 egg. So remember, you're looking for how it sounds grammatically and whether things are spelt correctly and punctuated correctly. So number 1 was B. The scientist elaborated on his earlier remarks. Elaborate, to elaborate, that means to make something clear. Number 2 was D. The judge did not believe that the man was telling the truth. I had to look closely at A, why that wasn't correct. There's no full stop at the end. The spelling of believe is wrong in this example. Was telling of the truth is not grammatically correct. So you have to look very carefully at these options. How long must I wait for? Demanded the angry customer. Can't be B, there is no question mark or full stop at the end of the sentence. We wouldn't have a capital letter here, which is why it's not C. And again, we have no question mark inside the inverted commas here for D. Number 4, the boy didn't want to go to school yesterday. Note the apostrophe here to show the omission of the O. If this word was separated, it would read did not. There are too many wild animals over there. Learning to play a musical instrument requires plenty of patience. Full stop at the end. If you look closely at this one, requires is spelt wrong. If you look closely at this one, instrument is spelt wrong. Number 7A. The tourists were desperate to visit London and Paris. We must have capital letters for cities. Here we are missing one as well. And the spelling of desperate is incorrect here. I love to watch documentaries. They are fascinating. Now, this definitely wasn't C because there is a contraction of they are. So you needed one of these examples. And this had no punctuation in the middle. I love to watch documentaries. They're fascinating. The purpose of this semicolon here is to create a pause, which a comma also does. But a semicolon can be used to replace a conjunction, like because, for example. I love to watch documentaries because they're fascinating. So instead of a linking conjunction, we have a semicolon. Bit of grammatical knowledge or revision there for you. Number 9D, Dave's new neighbour Sally was very friendly. Again, it's the way we read. We need pauses with which the commas give to us. Dave's new neighbour Sally was very friendly. And 10 was C. Omar mistook James for a stranger. Number 11, some species of bear hibernate in winter. Species is incorrect here. Bear, this is a homophone. This is the wrong spelling of bear. That's not how we spell bear, the animal. And we wouldn't have a capital W for winter. And number 12, B. Peter ate bacon, sausages, eggs and toast for breakfast. Look carefully at the commas. You need some. And that was 12 marks to be gained from that section there. Okay, moving on to test 25. 5 minutes, 10 questions. Very similar, complete the sentence. This time you're just circling the letter next to the word that best completes each one. The girl walked home after school. So again, read it in your head and think about how it sounds. The student did not know the answers, so he hugged. What would he hug? How would that help him? So of course he guessed. The lecture was useless and something of any helpful information. A bit like closed tests where you've got the missing word in the middle of a sentence. Read beyond the gap to establish what the sentence is trying to say. This word is devoid. Again, might be a new one for you. Devoid of any helpful information. That means there wasn't any in that lecture. It was difficult to drive in winter due to the icy roads. Kate's abrupt departure surprised all of her colleagues. Abrupt means sudden. The essay scored a high mark because it had a logical conclusion. We couldn't put excellent here because we've got two vowel sounds, a and then e. A excellent conclusion we can't have. That's why we say an. When we have two vowel sounds next to each other, we say an instead of a. So that's why we couldn't use excellent. Rotund means round, makes no sense there. It wouldn't score a high mark if it had a terrible conclusion, and nobody doesn't make any sense in that gap as well. So logical makes sense. Mary had to choose between black and blue designs. The workers were delighted to receive an extra week of holiday. They certainly wouldn't be furious about that, I can't imagine. Paul's phobia of snakes explains why he reacted badly when he saw the cobra. It could only be that option, really, because having a phobia of something means that you're afraid. So if you were afraid of snakes, you wouldn't react in any of these nice ways. And Victoria was feeling full, so she decided to skip dessert. The scientist thought the experiment was trivial, so he did not pay much attention to it. Again, might be a new word for you. Trivial means kind of beneath him. He didn't think it was worthy of his attention. Well done, everyone. You're doing very well, I am sure. Synonyms this time. 3 minutes, 10 questions. Nice quick one here. Again, we're back to missing letters. And this time it is just synonyms, not a mixture. Synonyms mean the same. So near is the same as close. Deception. Now, again, if I wasn't sure what that word means, I could look in my dictionary and it will tell me. I could look in my thesaurus and it might give me some other words. But also you've got the letters that are already given to you, which you can use for clues. So to deceive somebody means you're lying to them, and that's a type of fraud. Concrete, firm, solid. Soaked, sodden, and appropriate, or actually in this case appropriate, means to confiscate. So this is a word that we call a dual meaning word. Appropriate behaviour means it's correct, it's something that you should be doing. Appropriate clothing for a particular environment, like a wedding, you might wear a suit. But to appropriate means you take, and it's the same as confiscate. Make progress, you advance in something. Genuine means true or authentic. Liberty is freedom. Suspend. Again, this word has a dual meaning. It could mean to hang from the air, to suspend from a rope. But in this case, it means to stop something, to finish something, or discontinue. I was looking at rugs the other day, for example, and there was a particular design that I liked that was discontinued. So it was suspended. Linger, remain. Exertion, effort. You exert yourself. So again, I'll say it again. Please do write down any of these words in your word and meaning books that were new to you and use them in your own writing. Nearly there. Last two tests. This is a word bank close passage. So a good strategy here is to eliminate words once you have picked them by crossing them out of the word bank, and read beyond the gap so that you know what the passage is saying. This is called the farmer's daughter. A farmer's daughter was carrying a pail of milk from the field to the farmhouse when she began to think, the money for which this milk will be sold will buy at least 300 eggs. So I've chosen the words that I think are going to fit in the gap, and I'm just going to tick them off as I go along. This will help me keep track of the words that I have used. And if further down the line you come to a word that doesn't make sense, you might have made a mistake somewhere, so you can go back and check. The eggs, allowing for all mishaps, will produce 250 chickens. The chickens will become ready for the market when poultry will fetch the highest price, so that by the end of the year I shall have money enough from my share to buy a new gown. In this dress, I will go to the best Christmas parties where all the young fellows will propose to me, but I will toss my head and refuse. Every one of them. At this moment, she tossed her head in unison with her thoughts. That means together. Down fell the milk pail to the ground, and all her imaginary schemes perished in a moment. And you can see there I've used all of my words. I haven't used any twice. That's something to be careful of when you're completing word bank passages. And there was some tricky vocabulary there. Again, unison means together. The way this is written is perhaps in a more old-fashioned way than you might be used to. Mishaps means things that could go wrong. So read and reread to check that it makes sense to you. And finally, lesson 20, test 28, you had just 3 minutes to complete this test by identifying this spelling mistake. Circle the letter under the word which contains a spelling mistake. In this example, it was C for scarce, because instead of an S there, we should have an E. Now, number 1, we had beseech. To beseech means you're asking something of somebody. And it's actually spelt with a double E. Subtle means you're not being obvious, you're being secretive, and that's actually spelt with a silent B. S-U-B-T-L-E, subtle. Number 3 was A, accuse. Instead of a Z, we have an S. And number 4, this was a definition. After the T, there is an I, definition, T-I-O-N. Again, if you weren't sure which word it could be, you could look in a dictionary for some of the ones that you were not sure of and check how they are spelt. Succumb means to give in to something, and that actually has 2 C's. Number 6 was callous. That's uncaring, and that's got a double L. Now, number 7, worrisome. The Y changes to an E when it's put together to make this compound word, worrisome. Number 8, labour, means hard work, and that's spelt L-A-B-O-U-R. Number 9, unison. We just talked about that word. That means together in time, and that's U-N-I-S-O-N. And finally, happiness. Again, when this suffix is added, the Y changes to an I. Okay, well done everybody. I hope that has been helpful to you, and a massive well done if you completed the You Could activities as well. See you next time.